Tremendous here. Got another book review here for you. Two of them, in fact, from Starships and Apocalypse, Volume 2, Time and Terrors, a collection of short stories by Andrew P. McGregor. These two are A Fridge Alone and A Fridge Far Gone. I decided to combine them because A Fridge Alone is only 6 pages and A Fridge Far Gone is 8 pages, and I assumed from the titles that they were connected, and I was right. These are still science fiction. These are still published on April 4th, 2021, and we're getting close to the end of the book. One more after this, so let's get to it, because this one is kind of fun to talk about. So the main character in this one, oh, by the way, these are all going to have spoilers. Real quick disclaimer, these are going to have all the spoilers. I'm going to go through it from start to finish. So if you don't like spoilers, I totally get it. Please click the link in the description below. Get the book, read the stories, come back, watch the review, and then let me know if I was right, if I was wrong, or somewhere in between. Would love to have a conversation. Totally understand if you don't like spoilers, but these are 6 and 8 page long stories. It's impossible to do a review without spoiling everything. So I'm going to. All right, you're still here, so let's get to it. So in this one, the main character's name is Stan, and he bought an old industrial 3D printer to aid his failing antique business. The only thing he's got in storage when the 3D printer is delivered is a 1950s Kelvinator fridge or something like that, and he uses it as a for storage of his beer, keep his beer cold. Turns out, though, that fridge is sentient and forces him to make more like it with the printer and then have him ship them out all over the world. It's interesting. It's definitely weird. It raises some questions, but overall, it's super entertaining. The cover, we've already been over this, the cover is excellent. Editing was really, really good. Story flow and feel on this one are really good as well. I have nothing to complain about whatsoever. This is a quick one, though. Stan, like I said, he buys an industrial 3D printer to make replicas of antiques because his business is failing. It says in a book that if he could sell a replica for 1/10 of the cost of an actual item, like an authentic one, then he might be able to turn his bankruptcy around and stuff, which makes total sense. No issue with that plot hook at all. When the 3D printer gets delivered, him and the delivery guy are actually kind of buddy-buddy, and they're talking a little bit, and the only thing he's got in his storage area, because again, his business is failing, is this old Kelvinator 1950s fridge. In the fridge is some beer and ale and stuff like that because Stan's a bit of an alcoholic. You know, he's got a failing business. He needs a hobby. But it's kind of weird because the fridge isn't plugged in, but it works fine, makes noises, and while it's weird, it's nothing that Stan feels like he should investigate or be curious about or whatever. Just, oh, what luck. The fridge just seems to work fine and makes a bunch of noises, but it's not plugged in whatsoever. Again, that would catch my attention. Why is my possessed fridge doing so well? And if it is possessed, I'm not sure if I need to put this thing into the 3D printer scanner, but he does. It's the only thing he's got. He's desperate. So he pushes the fridge into the machine and creates a replica fridge. Well, he sets the process to create it and then leaves for the day to go get drunk because it's time for him to go home. Totally understandable. The next morning, there are 6 fridges made and waiting for him inside the storage area, one of which has already sold, and his delivery buddy Bill is on his way to come and pick it up to drop it off at the buyer's location. And it sold for enough money to basically pay the rent on his storage facility on his business for a month, which I got to imagine is a significant amount of money for a fridge. Unfortunately, at this point, Stan discovers that the fridge is 100% sentient as it starts walking towards him and literally grinds its motor to say more. Yeah, Stan gets panicked a little bit about that one. But the fridge is kind of a jerk, and he walks up and he breaks Stan's finger. It's a little awkward. Like, I don't fully understand how the fridge door was able to get a hold of Stan's finger, considering he had fallen on the ground out of fear. But it did. It came over, and it closed the door real hard on his finger, breaking it, just to let him know, I will hurt you. And yeah, Stan starts cranking them out, and the end of the book shows that the fridge has its power cord wrapped around his wrist real tight, and you know, Stan's a little nervous, but he's making tons of money on these things, and he's shipping them out. He keeps printing them and shipping them out. The story kind of says, oh wow, 2 more things of of raw materials for the printer to work, huh? You really found your niche. Guess your money problems are over. And he's like, yeah, I guess they are. And the delivery guy, Bill, is taking a whole bunch, like 6 or 8 of the fridges out for delivery in the rest of the country. And as he leaves, Stan's sitting there like, oh my God, what have I done? And the fridge behind him, the main one, is grinding its motor until it says Empire, which I gotta be honest was kind of cool. Like it was a neat little thing, an evil fridge. I mean, I've seen that one movie from back in the '80s where the comet flies over and like Out of Control or something. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but yeah, all the cars and appliances and stuff turn on humans. But this is an interesting take on the whole genre, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that I gave it a coveted 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the reason that I took off that half is because it didn't have an end. It was too much of a cliffhanger. I know it's a short story. It's only 6 pages. I get that, and I really did enjoy it, but I didn't feel it was a 5 star because it didn't have any kind of closure, any kind of end. I understand that it's a short story and that it extends into the next short story, but why not just combine both of them? Why not? Why are these two separate stories? You could combine them into one story with just like a separating thing. You know, people do that, 3 little stars, and then the next part could be the continuation of this story. I mean, a 14-page story is still a short story. Actually, kind of small for this collection. So I don't understand why it was split into both into 2 sections, but it was. And I mean, it doesn't hurt anything, but it did stop me from giving it a 5 out of 5, just simply because there was no closure. It was open-ended, and a short story needs to stand on its own. Otherwise, it's called a chapter. So I couldn't give it 5 out of 5, even though I really did enjoy this. I got a kick out of it. It caught my attention, and it was over too soon, in my opinion. Even for a short story, closure, you need the full thing with a short story, and to use it as a prologue, it was fun, it was enjoyable, but I had to pull off that half a star because it's just not a complete story. And like I said, this is just one guy's opinion. So if you think that I'm wrong or think that I'm off, please click the link below, get the story, or get the book, read the story, and come back and tell me what you think afterwards. Maybe you'll change my mind, and maybe we can have a great conversation about it. All right, part 2 of this, or the next story, I guess, is a continuation of the first. Only in this one, the main character is a lady named Wendy. Wendy is Bill's mom, and Bill is the delivery guy from the previous story. Again, I don't know why these 2 stories were separated, but it was the author's choice. He made it, and we're going to go with it. She's in a nut house because she believes she went on an adventure with an alien and tells everybody about it, which led her in the loony, or eventually got her to inside an asylum. So it is what it is. But she's fine with it. Like, she's not miserable or anything like that. She seems to almost kind of like being there. It's interesting. Like, she seems like a sweet old lady. No big deal. She's like, oh yeah, everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I'm not. I went on an adventure with an alien, and if you can't handle that, well, I'll hang out here. Seems a little crazy to not just be like, oh, I must have had an episode. I'd like to go home now. Anyway, while she's there, Bill delivers one of the fridges from Stan's store to the asylum because apparently they needed one. Why he would give a fridge to the asylum where his mom is staying instead of the asylum just purchasing a new fridge is beyond me. Especially considering this one was thousands of dollars, and a fridge for the asylum, they could probably gotten it for like half that cost, if not less. But yeah, an old antique fridge. That's what the asylum wanted, so that's what Bill delivered. Needless to say, the fridge is not a protagonist and kind of terrorizes the patients there. Eventually, Wendy changes her tune and says, oh no, I was just crazy. I didn't really go on an adventure and the fridge isn't alive. Can I go home? And a week later, she gets to go home. But the fridge follows her. And I have some issues with this one. I have some issues with the continuation of this story. And we'll get into them right now because cover, editing, story flow, and feel I've already been over. So like I said, the story starts off, Bill is picking up some more fridges from Stan. They're talking, everything's great, yada, yada, yada. And then he's like, all right, bye. And, Stan's got the fridge cord wrapped around his wrist, keeping him in check. Stan goes and delivers one of the fridges to the asylum where his mom is committed, Wendy. His mom, like I said, believes that she went on a space adventure with her doctor in space. And you kind of get the feeling that she's telling the truth, because even the doctor is kind of like, at one point you get like into his head and he's like, it's too bad that she can't tell anybody about our adventures. Ha ha ha. But the doctor also says that he used to repair the fridges like the one that Bill delivered, which makes you think that he's in on whatever conspiracy is going on with these fridges. So is the doctor a good guy, a bad guy? If he's a bad guy and he's trying to feed people to the fridges, why would he befriend Wendy and go on an adventure with her? There's a lot of questions in this one that just aren't answered. And my point with all that is, why put that in a short story that's only 8 pages long? I mean, who cares about the adventure? She's in there for any reason. Why does the doctor have to be the guy that put her there, or that she went on the adventure with and has control about whether or not she leaves? It's just so many questions that are never answered, and that's one of the problems with a short story. You have to stay concise. You have to stay, hyper focused on the plot, because if you go off on a little side thing here, it leaves a lot of questions and a lot of non-closure for the reader, which kind of ruins the overall feel and the overall effect of the story in large, especially when you only have 8 pages to do it. Anyway, the fridge eats some of the patients. Wendy wakes up after the fridge is installed, decides she needs a snack. Pat, wanders over to the fridge. At first, she can't open it because it sounds like there's something wrong with it, but then it gulps, and yeah, you could put 2 and 2 together there. And when the fridge opens, for some reason, there's a whole bunch of meat inside of it that is perfectly cut and placed for human consumption, which, again, it raises a lot of questions. It's very obvious that the fridge just ate a patient. How it got a hold of him is beyond me. Maybe the patient walked over there kind of like a fisher or something like that, took the bait, and the fridge consumed him or her. You don't really find out who it was. But then it carves up and prepares the meat for human consumption. For what purpose? Like I said, there's no real explanation as to why the fridge needs to eat. Why did the original one, why was it able to sit in storage for so long without eating anything or trying to eat Stan? In fairness, you don't ever really find out how long it was there, but it's just very confusing. Like, why does the fridge need to eat? They were talking empire, they were talking more, but why? Like, what's the end game of the fridge army? And it's 8 pages, a 2-line sentence of the fridge, didn't need to eat, but it needed to fatten up select humans for, eventual pickup from its masters. I have no idea. I have no idea what it could have been done. It's not my story, but having a reason, a motivation behind why the fridge is eating people, or maybe it's not eating people, that it's preparing people for consumption by humans. Super confusing. Like, I don't understand what the fridge is doing and why. But Wendy doesn't realize this. She's an innocent old lady, and so she thinks that the meat is just a wonderful treat, and she takes a bunch of handfuls of it and goes back to bed. But over the next few days, she starts to realize that the fridge is eating patients and possibly serving up parts of them to the rest of the patients because it's so delicious. That's right, you're tasty. Thought you should know. But she's rightfully scared and decides, okay, I'm going to stop telling people that I was on an adventure with aliens and that the fridge is eating people and all that stuff, because I got to get out of here. I got to survive this, because this fridge is going to eat me like it eats everyone else. But the fridge doesn't actually try to eat Wendy. If anything, it tries to feed Wendy. It keeps offering her meat, quite literally coming up to her door in the asylum to offer her meat. And it talks to her right away. Want meat? It's kind of hilarious. But after a week, Wendy is released from the hospital because she changes her tune, and apparently the doctor is in on some cosmic joke, because that is not how that works. But if it was, or whatever, maybe that's just how it worked here. And she got out after changing her story for a week, which, again, seems a little flimsy to me, but whatever. There might have been a secondary reasoning for it, because after Wendy is released from the hospital, her son Bill comes to take her home, but he surprises her with the fridge that he dropped off at the asylum. Like, they gave it back. And that confuses me for multiple reasons. Number one, why would the hospital give the fridge back. I mean, if it was because Bill said it was only for their use while Wendy was in the hospital, it still seems like a weird thing to give the hospital and a huge inconvenience to take it away from them because Wendy's leaving. It just seems forced. I mean, I get why the author did it, but it doesn't fit in the story at all. It's very confusing, like why they would be okay with that. You don't get to go to like the Holiday Inn or whatever and then take the mattress with you or something like that. It's just weird. It's very weird. I don't fully understand why that would occur. A paragraph worth of explanation would have gone a long way here. But needless to say, Wendy does not want the fridge because she knows it's some sort of, human eater, meat prepare. I have no idea. It eats or prepares humans for human consumption. Very weird. But it scares her to death. But instead of saying anything, she just goes along with it. She's just like, okay, cool, whatever. She starts to get ready to say something, but then the fridge motor starts growling at her or whatever. And for some reason, Bill completely misses the fact that the fridge is making noise when it's not plugged in. A lot of people seem to be oblivious to this very strange occurrence. But instead of saying anything, like just slam the door closed on, as soon as the door closed on the truck, she could have said, we need to get rid of that thing. It's eating people. We need to get rid of it right now. Yes, I understand she would have ended up right back into the asylum, but she also wouldn't have been being devoured by the damn thing. Or maybe she could have destroyed it. There's so many other options then. I'll just be quiet and hope it goes away on its own. I hate stupid characters in stories like this, and I know it's a trope of horror stories or thrillers or whatever this might be classified under. I know science fiction, but this is more of a thriller, in my opinion, maybe horror, and it eats at me. It's hard to root for the stupid person, It's like my empathy only stretches so far. But yeah, that's she's going home with the fridge in tow by her son. So yeah, she gets home and the fridge gets installed and her son is like, "We'll come by afterwards. I'll bring the wife and kids." And she's like, "No!" And her son's like, "Oh," and she's like, "I just need time to get situated. I just need time. Why don't you wait a few weeks and then bring everyone over?" And her son's kind of upset, a little disappointed. Doesn't register to him at all that mom's acting funny or weird. You'd suppose you'd be a little vigilant on that, considering you just took her out of an asylum, but maybe Bill's an idiot too. I don't know. I don't know. It feels stapled together, like really poorly stapled together at the end there, and it eats at me because it's a cool concept, it's a cool story. There's just no real reasoning behind it. Why is the fridge attacking? Why is the fridge so interested in Wendy? Why would the fridge allow itself to be taken out of the asylum when there is a regular influx of patients in there that not only can it seem to eat at its leisure without any investigations taking place, but also other ones to feed who really seem to enjoy the meat? I mean, it's the perfect setup because even if the fridge is caught by one of the patients, no one's going to believe them. "Oh, the fridge is alive!" "Sure it is, wackadoo. Here's your pills. Pills are good." I mean, so to go to Wendy's house where she lives alone in an isolated environment where only maybe it could eat the family of the one guy that seems to be transporting them all over the country, which is something they wouldn't want. It just doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. In my opinion, the fridge should have stayed in the asylum and like communicated with Wendy or something like that, or maybe made her blender sentient somehow, or sended her messages like, if you don't do this, if you don't order more fridges and gift them to, I don't know, your church or whatever. Maybe she's part of an old ladies group or whatever. Your son is next, or something other than it goes out of a perfect scenario where it could eat and serve human flesh up to other humans at its leisure without any risk of being caught or hindered. It seemed like the doctor was in on it, to isolation in an old lady's house where the only people that it's really going to have any contact with are her immediate family, one of which she can't touch because if it does, they stop getting deliveries, or it could slow down the deliveries maybe. And just the old woman who is very aware of what it is and doesn't want anything to do with it. I had an issue with that. I had a lot of issues with that because I just don't understand what the point was. But anyway, the story ends with the fridge literally bellowing from the kitchen, "Want meat?" Which is another question, because how is it producing the meat all of a sudden if only she's in there? Because in the asylum it had to eat somebody before it had meat to offer the humans. So what does it mean, want meat? Where's it going to get the source? Where's it going to get the resources? Can it now just teleport meat into it? Again, lots of questions on this one, lots of confusion. And in the end, for some reason, the fridge lets her just live there. It doesn't immediately consume her. It ends with her in bed, putting the pillow over her head, hoping to drown out the sound of the fridge because she's scared that it's going to eat her. So she has to stay quiet. Like, again, that doesn't make any sense either. Why is staying quiet have anything to do with whether or not the fridge is going to eat you? The fridge is very aware that you're there. You being quiet has nothing to do with it. It's not a T-Rex. And even that might be a myth. So I just didn't understand the end of the story, and honestly, it probably needs some revisions because it's a cool plot. I like where it's going, I like where it's headed, but it doesn't feel like a finished idea, and it didn't come off that way, in my opinion, based off the story. So in the end, I ended up giving this one 3 stars out of 5. And the reason is because I believe right now, as it sits, it's a very average story. It's not great, but it's not terrible. It's right there on that razor's edge where it's teetering. It could go either way, but I think a revision is required in order to bring this one out of its obscurity. Because for every cool idea it has, it fails to deliver fully on any of them, which is disappointing because, in my opinion, this could easily be a 5-star story. I personally think, and this is just my opinion, that this story and the one before it should be combined into one, and some more meat should be added to the story a little bit. It's a short story, I get that, but remove the part about the doctor, remove the little stuff that is inconsequential. I don't care about the mom's adventure in space with this doctor. Get rid of all that. It gives you about half a page or so, and instead put stuff in there, put motivations in there. The fridge does a speech to Stan saying, you will increase my numbers, and I must survive, or something like that. Now you understand why it's trying to build itself up. But when it starts eating people, now you need a reason for why it's eating people, because it doesn't seem to require the sustenance, because it's offering the sustenance as cut meat for the other humans that come to it and stuff like that for snacks. But why is that? Why is it trying to feed the humans that it's also eating? If you're trying to tell me it's because it needs to fatten them up before it consumes them, then why is the food in there? Why is it offering sustenance to the humans who it just wants to eat? Because clearly it needs this sustenance. I could see how it could work out, but again, needs to be explained. This is a short story. There's not a lot of context time, but I think combining the two and adding 5 to 10 pages of just explanation, maybe some more detail and stuff like that, it still keeps it under 30 pages, which is totally within the realm of short stories, and it makes it a much better, much more fulfilling story that covers all the bases. You've got your plot, you've got your reasoning, antagonist, protagonist, you've got your climax, you've got your conclusion, and hopefully everything wrapped up in less than 30 pages. Very, very doable. It's just not there yet. But again, like I like to say multiple times throughout these reviews, these are my opinions. I am one guy. I am not the final decision on whether or not this book is a 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, whatever star it is. I believe that this second story was a 3 out of 5 star. You may disagree. Click the link in the description below, get the story, read it, and come back and let me know. Was I close? Was I off? Was there somewhere in between? Love to have a conversation about it. As always, though, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, thanks.